Welcome back to Mission of the Chosen. Today's message will speak to the part of you that's been quietly wondering, why me? And it will answer you with divine truth. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange sense that people are paying closer attention to you than they should. That odd moment when the room shifts the second you walk in. That unshakable awareness that someone, somewhere, is whispering your name not with malice necessarily, but with curiosity, with something else, something deeper. Let's get one thing clear from the beginning. This isn't just your imagination playing tricks on you. This is spiritual. This is real. And this moment right here, right now is your confirmation. You are not ordinary. You are not random. You are not lost in the sea of humanity. You are seen. You are known. And yes, people are talking about you more than you realize. Why? Because you've been set apart. You carry something on the inside of you that cannot be explained by personality or talent. It's deeper than charisma, louder than words, and more magnetic than appearance. It's your spirit. Have you ever been minding your own business, only to feel like you're being observed? Not in a creepy way, but in a way that feels spiritual. That's not by accident. God has placed something in you that calls attention, not because you seek it, but because your energy announces itself before you even open your mouth. Let's talk about that energy. Your presence has weight. It shifts the emotional climate. It disturbs what's stagnant. It invites the truth to rise. And for many people, that's uncomfortable, because the truth doesn't always sit well with those who've learned to lie to themselves. So when you walk into a room, you don't just arrive, you disrupt. That disruption is both a blessing and a burden. Some admire it, some envy it, but either way, they feel it and they talk about it. Not because they fully understand what they're seeing, but because they sense it's significant. And what we don't understand, we tend to talk about. Chosen ones are rarely recognized by appearance alone. They're recognized by impact, by silence that feels like presence, by eyes that seem to see beyond the surface, by lives that cannot be explained by logic alone. If you've ever wondered why people open up to you, even strangers, if you've been the one they call when they need clarity, direction, or peace, if you felt that you carry burdens you didn't ask for, it's not coincidence. You're carrying light in a shadowed world, and that light isn't just visible, it's loud. It speaks louder than your voice. It echoes through your walk, your choices, your presence. And people notice. You've probably asked yourself, why can't I just live like everyone else? Why can't you enjoy what they enjoy, fit in where they fit in, settle like they seem to? It's because you're not wired for average. You were never meant to blend in. God didn't form you in your mother's womb just to live a forgettable life. There's a mark on your spirit, a seal, a vibration that others feel long before you realize they've picked up on it. Some are drawn to it, others are intimidated by it, but no one is neutral. Now, you might be thinking, if I'm so set apart, why do I feel so misunderstood, so alone? Here's the truth. Separation is often the first sign of elevation. God pulls you away from the noise so you can hear Him clearly. He isolates you to insulate you, to build your discernment, to fine-tune your soul, to make you unshakable. When others chase popularity, you're learning to dwell in purpose. When others are loud, you're learning to listen. That quiet space you've been forced into isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's where your strength is forged. People sense your destiny even before you do. That's why they watch. That's why they talk. That's why they react in ways that seem unprovoked. They're not always responding to you. They're responding to what's on you. That anointing, that weight, that invisible pull. Even when you walk in silence, your spirit speaks, and it speaks volumes. Don't let their confusion become your doubt. You're not here to convince anyone. You're here to become who God already designed you to be. Let them talk, because the more they talk, the more they confirm what you already know deep down. You are different by design, and different always draws attention. So today, if you're listening to this message and your heart is pounding, your eyes tearing up, your soul leaning in, it's because this is your word. You didn't stumble here. God sent this confirmation straight to you. And if you've been asking for a sign, this is it. Now, before we continue, I want you to do something bold. Pause. Reflect. And if this resonates with you, comment below with the number that aligns with your spirit: 777, 3,333, 4,444, whatever feels right. These numbers are not just numbers, they are symbols of alignment, of recognition, of activation. And while you're here, make sure you're part of this family. Subscribe, tap that bell, and most importantly, share this message with someone else who needs it. Don't keep this confirmation to yourself. Let it ripple. This isn't just another motivational speech. This is divine insight. This is soul food. This is your spiritual mirror. And what you see reflected here isn't weakness, it's power. Do you ever feel like people are whispering about you even when you are not in the room? Have you ever noticed how conversations suddenly shift when you walk in? Or how certain people give you looks that you cannot quite explain? Chosen one, this is not your imagination. This is not paranoia. This is not something you are just making up in your head. What you are experiencing is real, and it is spiritual. God has given me this message for you, and if it has reached you right now, it is not by chance. It is divine timing. This is the perfect moment for you to hear this truth, because it will open your eyes to a reality that has been surrounding you all along. They talk about you more than you realize. They mention your name in rooms you have never stepped into. They discuss your presence, your energy, your aura, even when you are nowhere around. Why? Because you are not ordinary. You are set apart. You carry something deep within you that others can sense before you even speak. And whether they admit it openly or not, you are always on their minds because your spirit is different. You are a chosen one. And that comes with a weight, a responsibility, and yes, a spotlight that you never asked for but cannot escape. This message is crucial to you. It is going to confirm things you have felt but could not explain. It is going to bring you peace about situations that made you question yourself. It is going to remind you that God is not just watching over you. He is speaking directly to you through signs, whispers, and even through the way people treat you. You are divinely guided, and your steps are not random. This moment right here, right now, is part of your path. So listen closely, because once you understand why they talk about you, you will stop doubting yourself and you will begin to walk more boldly into your divine destiny. You are unforgettable. Even when you try to stay small, stay hidden, stay unnoticed, you are felt, you are remembered, you are discussed, and not in the way you might expect. This isn't about attention, it's about energy, about calling, about frequency. You don't just occupy space, you shift it. Sometimes you wonder why people act strange when you enter a room, why voices lower, why smiles turn into side eyes, why conversations shift. It's because your spirit speaks before you do. And that spirit, it carries truth, it carries weight, it carries light, and light, by its nature, exposes what was trying to stay hidden. Let me explain it like this. You don't have to be loud to be known. Some of the most powerful forces in the universe move in silence: wind, gravity, spirit. That's you. You've walked through things most people would collapse under. You carry lessons that life carved into your soul. You have wisdom that no degree could teach. And others feel that. So when they talk about you, it's not always out of hate. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's reverence. Sometimes it's the unsettling realization that you are not like them and they don't know what to do with that. So they whisper, they analyze, they overthink your presence. Because when you carry purpose, people feel it even if they can't name it. Here's something they won't admit. You inspire them. You irritate the parts of them that have stayed asleep too long. You stir things, you wake things, and not everyone is ready for that awakening. But that's not your problem to fix. Your responsibility is not to make people comfortable. Your responsibility is to walk in your assignment. Because whether you realize it or not, you are already making waves. You are already influencing, already impacting, already being recognized in ways your eyes haven't yet seen. Let them talk. Their conversations are confirmation. Not that you are perfect, not that you're above others, but that you are aligned, that something in you resonates beyond the surface. You are not what they expected, and that's exactly why God chose you. You are not here to fit the mold, you are here to break it. So if they're still talking, let them. because heaven already started the conversation, and earth is just catching up. If that truth is resonating with you, don't scroll without marking it. Type 1212 in the comments as a signal that you feel it deep in your bones. Don't just absorb this message, activate it. And remember this, some people will spend their entire lives discussing what they'll never have the courage to become. But you're becoming it, quietly, boldly, and they know it. There's something you need to realize. Not everyone who watches you is watching to admire. Some are watching to measure, to study, to predict your next move, not because they want to follow, but because they want to interfere. This kind of attention isn't obvious. It comes wrapped in politeness, in casual interest, sometimes even in support. But underneath, there's a quiet strategy, a plan to contain what they can't control. They sense what you carry. You might not talk about your dreams out loud, but they can feel them. You may stay humble about your growth, but they see it happening. You might downplay the fire inside you, but they can smell the smoke. And so, they prepare, some with curiosity, some with confusion, others with quiet opposition. You need to understand that spiritual interference doesn't always look like open attacks. It often looks like distractions, delays, doubt that creeps in through familiar voices. Sometimes it's a subtle pull to second-guess yourself. Other times, it shows up in the form of people who want access to your time, your energy, your light, but not your truth. They want to orbit you, but they don't want to rise with you. These are the watchers who smile while silently hoping you never realize who you really are. There will be people who only celebrate you as long as you remain under their control. The moment you start breaking patterns, setting boundaries, elevating beyond the familiar, you become a threat. You were never meant to stay under their ceiling, and they know it. That's why they whisper, that's why they question, that's why they change when you grow. It's not always personal, it's positional. You're leaving places they never dared to walk away from. You're growing in ways they convinced themselves was impossible. You're becoming what they tried to suppress in themselves. And yet, their resistance is proof. Proof that your steps are disrupting systems. Proof that your decisions are shaking up dynamics. Proof that your growth is no longer a secret. It's being felt, it's being seen, and it's being studied. So what do you do when you know you're being watched? You don't shrink. You don't hide. You don't water down your fire just because others are afraid of being burned. You move with wisdom. You speak when led. You discern who deserves access. You let your fruit do the talking. Because when you're truly walking in purpose, your life becomes its own defense. You don't have to explain yourself when your elevation speaks louder than their opinions. Let this settle into your soul. They wouldn't be watching if you weren't worth watching. Their surveillance is a signal. Their silence is a statement. Their reactions are revelations. You are no longer hidden. And once the light hits you, even the shadows know your name. Not everyone who claps is cheering, and not everyone who's quiet is indifferent. Some are just hoping you don't notice how closely they're watching what God is doing in your life. Stay awake, stay aligned, and keep building in silence until the results make the noise. Because when your growth becomes undeniable, so does your calling. Here's the truth many never say out loud. It's not your presence that unsettles people. It's your potential, because potential carries pressure. People feel it when you walk in. They sense that you haven't even fully stepped into who you're becoming, and yet you're already disrupting the atmosphere. It challenges their comfort. It interrupts their illusions. It reminds them of everything they haven't done, all the growth they avoided, and every time they silenced their own callings. You didn't ask for this, but you were marked by it. You carry a presence that convicts without saying a word. And it's not because you're trying to be better than anyone. It's because you're becoming someone that others secretly hoped they could be, but were too afraid to pursue. Let that sit with you for a moment. You were sent to disrupt, not with noise, but with alignment. Not with ego, but with divine assignment. And that kind of energy, real, raw, unapologetic truth, forces people to make a decision, rise with you, or resist you. And many will choose resistance. You may be wondering why relationships shift without warning, why people you supported now distance themselves. Why your wins feel lonelier than your losses ever did. Here's why. Your elevation exposes what was never rooted in real connection. Some people only loved you when you were convenient, when you were small enough to manage, when your glow didn't reflect their own darkness. But now you're moving in a different rhythm. You're outgrowing old patterns. You're making decisions that don't seek permission. And those shifts make people uncomfortable. Not because you changed in a negative way, but because you dared to change at all. You are not being rejected. You are being revealed. You're seeing who was drawn to your light and who was simply comfortable in your shadow. That clarity hurts, but it also frees you, because now you no longer have to guess. You don't have to beg to be understood. You don't have to carry the weight of relationships that were only meant for one season. And hear me clearly, God will never allow the wrong people to keep a front row seat in a season they were never built to survive. Your growth is divine. Your separation is strategic. And your silence, it is not weakness. It is wisdom. You don't need to announce your transformation. Your alignment will speak. Your peace will preach. And your purpose will echo louder than their opinions ever could. So if you feel alone right now, if it seems like support disappeared the moment you started moving different, take heart. This is not punishment. This is positioning. Because what God is doing in you now requires room. Room to breathe. Room to build. Room to become. The old crowd cannot handle the new capacity. And the new you can't be explained with the old language. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mislabel the silence. Let them sit with their discomfort. You have nothing to prove. What's coming through you will speak for itself. And when it does, even the ones who walked away will remember the weight you carried and why they felt it long before they understood it. You might not realize this, but your very existence carries a message. Not one written in words, but in energy, in presence, in how you endure, in what you rise from. And that message is being read by everyone around you, even if they pretend they can't see it. You don't speak much about what you've survived, but your posture speaks volumes. Your resilience whispers strength. Your boundaries shout growth. Your peace unsettles their chaos. And while they may not mention it directly, they feel it, and they adjust accordingly. There's a reason some people keep tabs on you without ever supporting you. They won't share your wins. They won't like your progress. They won't comment when you shine. But they're always watching. Not because they're inspired, but because your movement reminds them that staying stuck is a choice. Your progress convicts them. You walking forward forces them to look at everything they're still avoiding. And that kind of reminder can either trigger growth or awaken jealousy. Often, it awakens both. You need to hear this. Your existence is doing more than you know. You are proof that healing is possible, that transformation is real, that you don't have to stay where you were planted if the soil was toxic. And that truth is shaking things in people you haven't even spoken to. Because your life carries authority. And not everyone is ready to be in the presence of someone who walks in freedom they haven't tasted yet. But here's what matters most. Keep walking. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't dim your joy to accommodate their insecurity. Don't second-guess your journey just because someone else refuses to start theirs. Let your light keep shining, even if it blinds those hiding in the dark. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. That is alignment. That is obedience to who you've been called to become. You weren't created to go unnoticed. You were created to be undeniable. You were formed to remind people of what's possible when faith meets action. And that reminder will stir resistance, but it will also awaken those who are ready. Not everyone will celebrate you, but some will remember you. Some will shift because of you. Some will find their own calling by watching you walk in yours. You may never meet them. You may never hear their names, but your courage will echo in rooms you never enter. Your obedience will ripple in lives you never touch. So even if it feels like no one is clapping, keep building. Even if they say nothing, keep becoming. Because God did not anoint you to be popular. He anointed you to be powerful. And the power in you is already causing waves in places your feet haven't even stepped into yet. They wonder how you keep standing. They see you take hit after hit, and somehow, you still rise. There are moments they thought would break you, situations designed to silence you, seasons meant to swallow you whole, but you're still here. And that, more than anything, confuses the ones who never expected you to last this long. They watched your setbacks. They saw the delays. They whispered during your quiet seasons, assuming that silence meant defeat. But what they didn't know was that you were being rebuilt. You weren't falling apart, you were being restructured. God was stripping away what was never meant to stay. He was reordering your steps, teaching you patience, giving you depth, not for their validation, but for your foundation. You weren't meant to return as who you were. You were meant to come back stronger, quieter, sharper, more focused, more aligned. And now that you are rising again, they don't know how to read you. Because you don't move the way you used to. You don't engage the way they expect. You're not performing, you're not explaining, you're just becoming. And that unsettles people who built comfort around the version of you that needed approval. Let them wonder. Let them ask questions. You owe no one a breakdown of what God is doing in your life. What you survived is not for entertainment. It is for purpose. And your purpose is unfolding without apology. You're not behind. You're not off track. You're not delayed. You are right on schedule for the person you are becoming. The detours were lessons. The waiting was preparation. The silence was sacred. And now that it's your time to walk forward again, walk boldly. Even if they don't clap. Even if they question it. Even if they pretend not to see it. Because deep down, they feel it. They know something has shifted in you. They know the silence made you stronger. They know your walk now carries weight. So let this be your reminder. You are the evidence that grace still builds after the fall. You are the living proof that stillness does not equal surrender. And every time you rise, you testify without speaking a word that God is still in the business of restoration. There is a moment in your journey when you realize you no longer fit where you once belonged. Not because you've changed for the worse, but because you've changed on purpose. The version of you that used to shrink to make others comfortable no longer exists. The version that second-guessed every step, gone. The one who waited for permission to rise, that door is closed. You've outgrown the rooms that celebrated your potential but couldn't handle your actual growth. They loved you when you were full of promise. But the moment you became the promise in motion, the energy shifted. Suddenly you were too much, too confident, too different. But you're not too anything. You are becoming exactly who you were designed to be. And not everyone will have the capacity or the humility to celebrate that. This is the tension of transformation. You start shedding layers that others were comfortable identifying you by. You start walking in a level of clarity that makes others confront their confusion. You start choosing alignment over approval. And when you do that, you become unfamiliar to those who only knew the unhealed, uncertain version of you. Let them be uncomfortable. You are not responsible for managing their misunderstanding. You are responsible for stewarding your becoming. The people who are meant to walk with you now will recognize your evolution as necessary, not threatening. They won't ask you to shrink. They won't ask you to explain. They'll honor the work, even if they didn't witness every step of it. This new space you're entering, it requires clarity. It demands discernment. Not everyone from the past can be carried into the future. Some connections were only designed for the version of you that was surviving. But now, you're thriving. Now, you're choosing differently. Now, your prayers are manifesting, and your boundaries are proof of that. Don't grieve the spaces you've outgrown. Honor them for what they taught you. Thank them for what they revealed. But don't shrink just to re-enter them. Growth will always feel like loss to the version of you that needed to be small to feel safe. But safety isn't the goal anymore. Now, it's truth. Now it's purpose. Now, it's freedom. And that kind of freedom doesn't come with explanations. It comes with movement. So move. Even if it means walking alone for a while. Especially then, you don't need to defend your glow. It's not arrogance. It's evidence. Evidence that you've done the work, that you've endured the seasons, that you've healed what no one clapped for. That shine, it's not pride, It's proof. People will try to convince you that you've changed too much. They'll say you're different. But that's the point. You were never meant to stay the same. Stagnation was never the goal. You were always meant to evolve, to ascend, to shed what no longer fits. And when you do, you'll outpace the conversations that used to define you. There's a sacred kind of strength in not needing to explain your growth, in letting your transformation speak for itself, in smiling when they whisper, not out of spite, but out of understanding, because you now realize most people only understand what they've experienced, and if they haven't experienced freedom, they'll label yours as rebellion. If they haven't seen peace, they'll call yours fake. If they've never healed, your wholeness will feel offensive. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them project. You're not here to be legible to everyone. You're here to be faithful to what God put in you. And that faithfulness will always be misunderstood by those who were content with pretending. Here's what matters. You are aligned. You're not chasing, you're attracting. You're not forcing, you're flowing. You're not proving, you're becoming. And that posture will confuse people who only understand striving. But that's not your concern. Your only responsibility is to stay in position. Because the blessings assigned to your obedience are not negotiable. They are coming, with or without applause, with or without understanding, with or without their permission. So stop worrying about who didn't clap. Focus on the assignment. Because the favor on your life speaks louder than their opinions ever could. And when God lifts you, no amount of noise can drown that elevation. No shadow can hide that light. No whisper can stop what's already written. You've probably felt it. That moment when you walk into a space and everything shifts. People glance. Conversations pause. The energy rearranges itself. You didn't say a word, but something about your presence speaks loudly. That's not random. That's not ego. That's spiritual. You carry weight in the unseen. You disturb what was dormant. You awaken what others have tried to keep buried. It's not just your words that carry power. It's your walk. It's how you carry what you've survived. It's the quiet authority in your stillness. And people sense that, even if they don't understand it. Some will be drawn to it. Others will retreat from it. But everyone will feel it. Because when your spirit is in alignment, your very presence becomes disruptive to the places where pretending is the norm. And not everyone is ready for that kind of authenticity. You don't have to try to stand out. You were never made to blend in. You carry a frequency that shakes old patterns. And frequencies like yours are rare. That's why people watch. That's why they react. That's why they whisper. But here's the part most miss. Their reaction isn't about you. It's about what you activate in them. Conviction, jealousy, curiosity, inspiration. Sometimes all at once. You become a mirror without trying to be. And mirrors make people confront what they've been avoiding. You were never sent to entertain. You were sent to awaken. And awakening isn't always met with applause. Sometimes it's met with resistance. But don't confuse resistance with rejection. What resists you often recognizes you before it's ready to receive you. So stay planted in your truth, even when the room shifts, even when the tone changes, even when the energy gets strange, because that's when you know your presence is doing what it was designed to do. And that's something no one can imitate, replicate, or silence. There's something sacred about being misunderstood. It means you're no longer translating your spirit into a language that wasn't meant to contain it. And that's not a loss. That's liberation. When you start aligning with who you truly are, you outgrow the need to explain your evolution to people who were never meant to walk with you beyond the old chapter. They say, you've changed. And they're right. You're no longer shrinking to fit inside expectations that were always too small. You're no longer quieting your convictions to keep others comfortable. You're no longer asking for permission to walk in a truth that was always yours to claim. Some people miss the old version of you because that version didn't challenge their limits. That version tolerated being overlooked. That version held back light so others wouldn't feel small. But now you've remembered who you are, and remembering is powerful. It brings back the authority you gave away. It restores the voice you buried. It reignites the flame you thought had burned out. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mislabel your silence. Let them form opinions based on access they no longer have. You're not obligated to stay in the room where your growth makes others uncomfortable. You don't owe them an explanation for why you're rising. Your life is not a public draft open for commentary. It is a divine manuscript, authored by a God who writes in miracles and moves in mystery. You don't need them to understand. You need the courage to keep becoming. Because becoming doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with distance. Sometimes it costs you the connections that once felt essential. But that cost isn't loss. It's an investment in who you were always meant to be. And the return is freedom. So breathe. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. You're not too much. You're just finally walking in alignment. And alignment doesn't require permission. It just requires obedience. Not all isolation is punishment. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes the silence around you isn't rejection. It's God pulling you away from noise that would drown out your next instructions. He removes what distracts you. He disconnects what depletes you. He allows the quiet so you can finally hear. And yes, it can feel like a loss, but it's really positioning, because your clarity doesn't come through chaos. It comes through stillness. If it feels like people are walking away, let them. Some of them were only meant to stand beside the version of you that needed their presence to feel secure. But this version needs space. Space to build. Space to bloom. Space to become. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Prepared to walk differently. Prepared to speak with more authority. Prepared to lead with discernment. And that kind of preparation often requires separation. Because elevation isn't a group project. There are parts of your journey that require solitude so your spirit can be strengthened without the interference of opinions. Let it be quiet. Let it be still. Let it be awkward. This is the season where hidden growth happens, where roots deepen, where noise fades, where your own voice becomes louder than your fear. You were never created to rely on constant affirmation. The power in you doesn't need permission to be validated. God is training your ear to hear Him directly. So when the crowd disappears and the cheers fall silent, that's your cue. That's when you lean in. That's when you pay attention. Because divine instruction rarely comes through the loudest voice in the room. It comes in the whisper. And you can only hear the whisper when the noise is gone. So if you're in a season of silence, don't panic. Don't rush to fill it. Don't assume something's wrong. This is not the absence of movement. It's the stillness before breakthrough. And only those who endure the quiet get to carry the clarity that comes after it. One of the greatest shifts in your journey happens the moment you realize this. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to believe in what God said. Because faith isn't built on applause. It's built on conviction. And conviction doesn't come from consensus. It comes from obedience. Stop waiting for the ones who don't see you to validate what was never given to them in the first place. Your vision wasn't a group decision. It was divine. And if they didn't hear the instruction, they won't understand the movement. So move anyway. Build anyway. Speak anyway. Rise anyway. The moment you stop needing agreement is the moment you start walking in authority. That's when your actions shift from reaction to revelation. You stop living in response to what people think and start living from the place God called you to. And from that place, your steps become bolder. Your voice becomes clearer. Your impact becomes unavoidable. Here's the truth. You don't need to be liked to be effective. You don't need to be followed to be called. And you don't need to be visible to be valuable. Your worth is not tied to metrics. It's tied to mission. And mission doesn't wait for popularity. Mission walks forward even when no one claps, even when no one notices, even when no one understands. That's what makes your calling different. It's not fueled by attention. It's sustained by surrender. And surrendered people don't stop when the audience disappears. They keep going. Because they were never doing it for the audience anyway. They were doing it for alignment. So don't be discouraged if your support system is silent. Don't give up just because the ones you thought would show up haven't. God will always send the right people in the right season. But until then, walk like it's already done. Move like it's already promised. Declare like it's already yours. Because in the kingdom, it's never about who sees you. It's about who sent you. Some people will only support you when your light doesn't outshine their shadow. The moment you begin to rise beyond their comfort level, their energy shifts. They'll call it pride. They'll say you've changed. But what they're really saying is they can no longer control the version of you that made them feel secure. You have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with being misread, with being the topic of conversations shaped by projections, not truth. Because if you need everyone to understand you, you'll end up shrinking just to stay explainable. And you were never meant to shrink. You were meant to expand. The higher you go, the thinner the air. Elevation comes with distance, but that distance brings clarity. You begin to see who was really for you and who was just around you. You begin to see who loved the idea of you, but couldn't handle the reality of your becoming. And that clarity isn't cruel. It's clean. It cuts through pretense. It separates proximity from loyalty. It reveals who was attached to your potential, but intimidated by your power. You don't need to be bitter, but you do need to be wise. There's no room for guilt when you're carrying destiny. There's no space for watering yourself down when the assignment requires your full strength. So walk boldly, even if it means walking away from the familiar, even if it means being misunderstood by those who once clapped for you. Especially then. This season isn't about proving anything. It's about becoming undeniable, not by force, not by show, but by presence, by alignment, by walking in the kind of peace that can't be faked and the kind of purpose that can't be copied. Let them talk. Let them speculate. Let them watch. They're witnessing something real, something rare, and they don't have to like it for it to be valid. You're not for performance. You're for purpose, and that alone is enough. There's a reason your name comes up in rooms you've never walked into. It's not luck. It's not coincidence. It's divine positioning. Your presence is felt long before your feet arrive. Your impact is spiritual before it's visible. You don't have to chase recognition when you're walking in alignment, because alignment speaks. You carry a frequency that travels beyond your body. It's not something you perform. It's something you radiate. The way you hold yourself, the way you recover, the way you love with boundaries, the way you speak with clarity. It all sends a message. You are not average. And that message echoes. They talk about you not because they fully understand you, but because they can't ignore you. Even in silence, your name surfaces. Even when you're hidden, your influence moves. Because you are walking proof of what God can do through someone who stays rooted. Rooted in purpose. Rooted in discipline. Rooted in truth. Don't underestimate the power of quiet influence. Not everything that shifts a room makes noise. Some changes happen because someone entered with authority, and you carry that. That's why doors open. That's why strategies change. That's why atmospheres respond. Not because you force it, but because you bring something into the space that can't be faked. You bring alignment. You bring clarity. You bring weight. So don't be surprised when your name is mentioned. You were never called to be hidden. You were called to be established. Your assignment isn't about being popular. It's about being positioned. And sometimes, God will let people speak your name in rooms as a sign that you are already known in heaven and recognized in the earth, even if you haven't arrived yet. Because presence is not about proximity. It's about purpose. And your purpose has already entered before you. They talk about you more than you realize, not because you're loud, but because your life is. It speaks through your endurance, through your decisions, through your silence. You've become a living signal, a reminder of what it looks like to carry purpose without needing a platform. And that confuses people who only understand impact through visibility. But you were never here to perform. You were here to reveal, to reflect something holy, to embody something sacred, to walk in something eternal. That's why they watch. That's why they listen. That's why they wonder. It's not you, personally. It's the light you carry, and that light is disruptive. It calls out what's been hidden. It exposes what's been tolerated. It confronts what's been normalized. You don't have to preach to be prophetic. You don't have to shout to be heard. Your walk is a sermon, and the room always notices when you enter carrying truth. So here's your confirmation. You are not being watched because you're entertaining. You are being watched because you're awakening. They may not understand your assignment. They may not agree with your path, but they cannot deny the evidence. And that evidence, it's already doing the work. In their minds, in their spirit, in the way they feel when you show up. You've become the kind of person who doesn't need to say much, because everything about how you carry yourself tells the truth. And the truth is this: you're not waiting for the world to crown you. You've already been chosen, and chosen ones move differently. They build differently. They speak differently. They endure differently, because they know the weight they carry isn't ordinary. It's divine. So walk with that awareness. Walk with that clarity. Walk with that peace. Not everyone will understand it. Not everyone will celebrate it. But everyone will recognize it. Eventually.